Thank you all very much. So I'm wearing my red Stop and Look at Me shirt today, just so that you can see me and pay attention, and thank you very much. Of course, this is not the color you want to use when you're dropping cards in the bag. I should have thought of that, but it didn't occur to me. So I care a lot about motivation and energized people and empowered teams. And I apply some of this as an Agile coach with leading Agile with the clients that we work with. So I wanted to share a few things with you along this topic. First, let me ask a question. Who is familiar with Dan Pink and his work Drive? Very many. For those of you who haven't, don't go buy the book. Just look on YouTube for, there's a 7-minute RSA animate of his TED Talk, and there's a 15-minute version as well. Look at those. It's very, very interesting topic. Dan Pink, in his book, he says that people are motivated primarily by 3 things: autonomy, mastery, and purpose. Okay? And these are intrinsic motivators. And he says, and he's looked at lots of research, and he says that people are motivated most easily and most readily intrinsically, and through those 3 things. So tell me, what motivates you? Just raise a hand and shout something out.
Trust.
Trust motivates you.
A challenge.
A challenge, okay?
Seeing people understand something they didn't before.
Uh-huh.
The light bulb moment.
The light bulb moment, yes.
Learning and making people happy.
Learning and making people happy.
Freedom.
Freedom.
I'll say the one that won't say money.
Money. Okay, so it does. There are some extrinsic motivators that do work, but a lot of times we find that we really suck at using extrinsic motivators. We flub them up all the time. And Deming would say this. What we really want to do, if we can, is to take advantage of the drive that our people already have. They're intrinsic motivators, and understand what they are, how to use them, understand our people, and understand how we can not demotivate people. Try to avoid the demotivators. So let's go to this next slide. So there are many tools that you can use to understand your people and get to know them. And this is just one tool. You could sit down with an employee and say, hey, what do you like about your job? What do you not like about the job? What's working in the environment? And I might not, as a manager, be able to fix all of these things. But if I can understand what he cares about, maybe I can protect it and make sure I don't screw it up. And if I find that there's something that is a negative for him, maybe I can do something about one of these. And so just knowing sometimes is half the battle. So get to know your people. But there are many other approaches. How else can you get to know your people? Talk with them.
Happy hour.
Ask. I'm sorry?
Happy hour.
Yeah, I thought I heard happy hour. I just wanted to ask.
Sure.
Yeah, exactly. What else?
Being vulnerable.
I'm sorry?
Transparency, being vulnerable.
Transparency and being vulnerable, and how would you apply that? How do you make that happen?
Establishing trust.
Establish trust. Okay, so you're talking a little bit more abstract. So help me get a little bit more. What's the specific action I could do?
Divulge a little bit about your own history.
That brings you back to the. I see why you said vulnerability now. Yeah, share something. Have a conversation. What else?
Observations.
Making observations. Just observing. Observing where?
Everywhere. Just how they're responding, questions that get a questionable look on their face,
Right.
their posture, the team around them, how they're responding to the person, seeing what's happening within that dynamic.
So maybe become a student of your people. Study your organization, right? Understand how your organization works, understand where the waste is, and understand your people. That all makes sense to me. Okay. What else? Yes?
Learn how they communicate.
How do you learn how they communicate?
This is what I used on Myers-Briggs.
Okay, Myers-Briggs. So, and there's many others. There's DISCs. Peter Saddington, I think, is here giving a talk on another approach. And so, yes, all of these things are wonderful tools. Having lunch with someone, one-on-one meetings. Follow them on social media. If an employee asks me to friend them on Facebook, yeah, I want to take advantage of that. And I want to pay attention to what you say. I want to know when you're having a bad day, when you're having, a trouble with your pet or something's going on in your family. Now, I'm not saying stalk your employees on social media, but if they're putting it out there on Twitter, why not? Pay attention to your people. So, if you consider yourself a leader of any kind in here, a leader or manager, let me have a show of hands. Okay, a lot. Yeah, okay, so good. I thank you for coming. And if you're not a leader, I'm hoping that you can consider these things, and maybe you should consider yourself a leader. Maybe you are having influence on your team, and it helps to understand your coworkers as people, as human beings, and have some empathy for them, and understand when they're having a bad day and how you can interact with them well. Okay, so let's see what else I have. So I want to do an exercise now. And this is why I had you pair up. And I want one of you to be a listener, a good listener. And so when we start, I want you to decide who's going to be the listener. And the good listener is going to be interested, neutral, ask a few questions during the exercise. What did you mean by this? Or how would what you just said manifest itself in reality? Or how does that show up? Seems like there's some inconsistency here. And that may be okay, but what does that mean? So point out maybe some things that you see. And don't dominate. Let the other person go through the exercise. We're going to go through it once, and then we're going to switch, and we're going to go through it again. Okay? So this is your role as a listener. Okay, so the one who's not the listener has these cards. And so let me pause for a minute and mention some other research. So I mentioned Dan Pink and Drive, and Dan didn't do the research himself. He looked at lots of studies. And there are lots and lots of studies out there about motivation. Another one, Stephen Wright, sorry, let me get the name right. I don't want to misquote it. It'll come to me in a minute. Another guy did some research and said that there were 16 basic motivators. And you have some of them on cards here. And some of the ones that aren't included are things like family and food and romance and vengeance. Now, also, some businesses may cater to those, most don't. And so, in your business life, if we just look at these 10, I think they're interesting. And what the 10 are really don't matter. We could use any kind of a tool. This is just a tool, and it's just one more tool to have in your toolbox. But what's interesting is the conversations you can have using these things as a facilitator for conversations. So what I want you to do is the person who's not the listener, I want you to lay them out from left to right, from most important to least important, to you. And a card means whatever it means to you. There's no right or wrong. And as you do this, okay, don't start just yet. I have a few more instructions. Don't overthink it. But as you start, I want you to vocalize what you're thinking. Kind of say what a card means to you and why you think one is more important than the other. So think about work and how these things matter to you in your workplace. Okay? And I'm going to give you 15 minutes to do this. Are there any questions about this half of the exercise? Yes, sir.
Is this 15 minutes for one person to be
Yeah.
one
So this is for 15 minutes for the first pass. So I want you to get something out of it. I don't want to stand here and yak at you a lot. I want you to think through this exercise and be introspective and say, what does it mean to me? And why am I hesitant to admit that status is very important to me? What does that mean? As your listener sort of probes and gives you some feedback as you go. Any other questions?
So we're just listening to be an active listener. We're not like trying to do you're doing this in the exercise here, right?
That's right.
You're
Yeah.
trying to help elicit why they feel that way.
Yeah, right. And so think of yourself as, if you're the listener, how might I do this with an employee? And what can I get out of it? And what types of questions would I ask or how would I react if they said that, something that I can't believe it. So think through those kinds of things as you go through the exercise. After the 15 minutes, I have step 2, and then we'll debrief, and then we'll run the exercise again after you switch partners. One last question? Go.